Okay, we'll do a sound check for our web audience. We're going to start in about 4 minutes. Apologize for my voice up front, but I'm not going to be doing most of the talking today. So, but we'll start in about, like I said, about 4 minutes. Okay, we're going to get started in just a minute. Appreciate everybody joining. Okay. Hey, my name's Wayne Welk. I apologize for my voice already. Definitely losing it. Luckily, I'm not going to do a whole lot of talking. We have a guest panelist or guest speaker who I'll introduce in a minute that will do our presentation for us. So we want to thank everybody again for joining us out there on the web and here live in the room. And we were thinking it was going to be flooding rain today, but so far nothing, right? So that's the way how it usually goes. So our topic today is Thin Clients and ThinManager version 11 update. Like I said, I'll introduce our speaker in just a minute. We filled our schedule out quite a bit, probably since our last time we met in January. So next month we'll do a Studio 5000 version 32 and a Logix update. And just a note, the Houston branch is doing their user groups on Thursdays, usually the day after us. They're going to do that topic tomorrow. So if you don't want to wait till March, you're more than welcome to join the Houston session online and listen to those guys. In April, we'll do SIP Security. That's kind of a product launch around the new Control Logix EN4T module, Ethernet module. So SIP Security will be the topic there. May, we're going to go with a little bit of a VUSC version 11 update, and also kind of roll in the ISA 101 high performance HMI standards. So that'll be our own Dean Bickerton will talk on the ISA part, and then Luis Ramos, who's also on the call today, will talk on the VUSC part. So that'd be pretty interesting. The kind of the newer high performance HMI standards. Mike Smoltz, who's presenting today, will briefly touch on version 11 about some of the licensing of it here in a few minutes. And then going all the way out to June, which is seems like forever away, we're going to have Stratus come in and talk about edge computing with their little ZTC edge server. So it's a pretty cool product. So that's how we're filling up. Of course, everything is the whole schedule is up there on our automation blog site, as well as all of our archives for both Houston and New Orleans. And just a few things we've been promoting. The last couple of times we've done this too is so today is a 1 hour or less kind of intro to Thin Clients and ThinManager and kind of what's new in the version 11. There will be a 3 separate one-day training seminars right here in the New Orleans room in March. So March 19th, 20th, and 21st. And you'll get to sit down at a station and actually do hands-on with ThinManager and kind of and get to learn it. And I know Mike and Luis will definitely talk more about that as we move on in the presentation today. We're still kind of thinking of a machine safety seminar sometime late spring. We got to get that one together, and a cybersecurity seminar later in the year. And then, of course, Tech Ed and Automation Fair for Rockwell national events are always on the calendar. And with that, I will stole Mike's picture, cyber stalked him. So Mike Smoltz, I'll let you take a minute to introduce yourself as we switch over the presentation to you. And you can take it away.
That's an old photo, but it'll work. It'll work. So add a face to a voice. Wayne, I appreciate the opportunity and everybody that's tuned in here for this short time, and Luis is on as well. So here's what I'd like to do. This is y'all's time. So what I want to do is I'll go over some slides and go over things. And if you have questions at any point during that, either unmute yourself and ask the question, or if you can submit it to somebody and they can type it. Either way, this is your time. I want to maximize your time and provide you the information that I have. And if there's information that I'm not presenting that you want to know about, I will make sure that I get that for you or get that through Wayne and others. So let me pull up the slide here. And we'll get that started here. So everybody should see the first slide, and we are going to talk about Rockwell ThinManager. I do want to make sure that everybody's familiar that ThinManager is a product of Rockwell's. We were a separate company and sold to Rockwell in 2016. The company used to be called Automation Control Products. That company is no longer of existence. The product now is Rockwell's, and we all joined Rockwell from the executive team and development team and support team and sales team, etc. So this is a Rockwell product. It is a good thing. I want to emphasize that because I was one of the executives, and it was part of my job was to get it integrated within Rockwell. So good things ahead. So Rockwell ThinManager is what we're going to talk about. And I like to just kind of set the stage so you know what we're going to go over. The slides are really specific to ThinManager 11 and what's going to happen in ThinManager 11. And it's current today. It actually launched December 21st. I'm trying to lay these 4 major bullet points of what I try to accomplish here. I usually talk about a big idea and a goal. And if I was in front of you or we were at another venue, my goal is to make sure that you know a little bit more about the product. And if you're not using it, you haven't tried it, you actually haven't seen it live, at your facility, I'd highly recommend that. Wayne and Group and Reynolds Company has these devices called a mid-range demo unit, which can give you a full function demonstration of how the product works. And it has a 2012 R2 server built in there with a badge reader and a camera. And it really gives you the ability to do all the functionalities in your environment, along with a mobile device to do some form of relevance. So mobile-based resolve security content. So that's the big goal. That's the big ask, that you'll reach out to Reynolds and your counterparts and talk to them about doing a demo. We'll talk about ThinManager 11 and what's been released in that. We'll go over the VersaView 5200 product family. I'm part of a business unit called Control Visual Business, and that's where ThinManager resides, along with USC and others. So we're all one family under CVB. And then at any point after or during, please, any questions. Again, just to make sure for everybody that's on watching or listening, is ThinManager is what I call a device tool, a device management tool, even though the text says, centralized device management and security content delivery to your connected enterprise. What I want to emphasize is most people that we talk to, calls we receive, demos we present, is they're having problems with their devices in their environment. And we have other suites of products within Rockwell that are available as well. But this is a situation where if you're running a PC and it fails, what is your time to recover? What is your mean to recover? And from a ThinManager architecture, running what we'll call, you'll hear me say thin clients, but mostly I'm going to use the word zero client. And the reason I use that is because a thin client in some people's environments are running a operating system on here. And with ThinManager, you're not. The operating system is actually the ThinManager platform, and it actually pushes out that content or that operating system, small firmware, down to what we call the terminal, the end device. So I'll use the word zero client a lot, and I just want to make sure when I'm using terminology, what I'm really relating to. But ThinManager manages these devices. So if a device was to go down and everything was configured within ThinManager, really could be back up and running in 2 minutes. And that's one of the value propositions about ThinManager. Then it allows you to securely deliver content to the endpoints, again, that terminal. And you can also do that on a mobile device. So this is as an eye chart, but what it's really trying to say is you can deliver information, any one of these sources on the left-hand side that you would see, we call content type, and it's managed through ThinManager. That's why ThinManager is there in the middle. And then you have the ability of delivering it, sending it to the area that you want, whether it's a user, device, or location, any of those combinations, or all three. You can deliver something to a user, device, location, and if they leave a location, that information is gone. So you don't lose your data. You might be out in an appliance if something dies or somebody walked out with an iPad. But again, the key thing is your data is very secure because it's on a centralized environment. Gives you a quick little visual here because I like visuals. As I start talking through text, you'll be able to see this. The manager interface, how you're able to deliver information and how you're able to lay it out. So what this is I just finished a water wastewater presentation. So I was kind of using the slide deck, and I figured this is important to point out. And what that you're actually seeing is information that's somewhere in different servers in different part of maybe a municipality or your plant or your environment, whatever your scenario is, and you're able to see that in the ThinManager interface. So the very large piece is the ThinManager interface. And you have the ability of tiling it, which is what this one is. There's other feature sets. When I talk about virtual screens and everything in some of the other slides, you'll see what I mean. But this is the ability of how you can visually see it on the ThinManager interface. The next slide will show you what a person actually sees at the terminal. But what this slide is supposed to show you is we have the ability of delivering ThinManager in many different ways. There's a secure way in different control rooms. There's an upper right-hand corner. You can run multiple monitors. The bottom right is to show that you can run on any type of mobile device, whether it's an iPad, Android, or Surface. There's going to be text that we're going to talk about again that's going to talk about licensing, and I figured this is a great visual to use to talk about, and I'll reference this slide maybe once or twice. But right now, what you're seeing is on the left, you're seeing what is being viewed in the control room on the ThinManager interface. To the right is what's actually being displayed to maybe an operator or somebody within whatever your environment is you call your environment. Plant floor, control, whatever that may be. And here it just happens to be a wastewater environment. But I'm pointing out two different things because there's also some text up there that I want to clarify. There is a new release Wayne was talking about, referencing in about View SC. This is only through Rockwell. We have made an announcement that today, if you use remote desktop, which the protocol is remote desktop, to push out content from a server to ThinManager, and if we were to look at licensing today for companies, and you were to look at this as saying these are 4 of their, we'll call it HMI screens, and it's the same HMI, but you're running 4 different instances. Today on that IU, that user interface, UI, user interface, that's 4 licenses that you're having to use. And the screen to the right would be the other 4 that's sitting on a server, because you can have a redundant environment set up. So what you would look at this is, let's say it's running on 2 different servers for a redundancy standpoint. You would need to have available 8 licenses because you're running 4 instances on this environment. But if this server goes down, you need 4 more available. That's on all other HMIs. When View 11 comes out shortly, you are only going to need 1 license. And I want you to have this visual, that what you see there today, this is sitting on, the one on the left is sitting on 1 server. The one on the right is sitting on another server, ready and available in case there happens to be a failure. You are only going to need 1 license with View 11 and ThinManager 11. So that's why the math is ThinManager plus View equals 1 license per terminal. So when you have your device, your terminal in the plant environment or whatever your environment is, ThinManager needs to be installed on the server. View is going to be on a server somewhere. That license, you only are going to have to issue out 1 license going forward. So we call that a game changer. We're the only HMI that's going to happen with, and it's a pretty good deal. Now, if you are running, I want to be clear too, if you are running any other HMIs out there, ThinManager is not just for the Rockwell HMI. It will work with any type of application out there. But we do want to let you know the advantage of going with our View SC11 is that you're going to only have to use 1 license. So you're not having to manage a lot of licensing. And that usually is a common question or concern with people saying, I don't want to manage licensing. How can you simplify that? Well, here's a great way to do it. So let's, again, just the quick benefits is productivity, visualization, security, and mobility. And if anybody wants some of these slide decks, I'm going to share it with Wayne, and you can have it to view on, at your leisure, understand more what we went over today. And really what this is talking about is all the different features that the productivity side, visualization, security, mobility gives you. And then we're going to really talk about how our Allen Bradley VersaView products work very, very well with ThinManager. So with that, again, as I mentioned earlier, December 21st of last year, seems like a long time ago, but it really wasn't. We released version 11. And let's click on this just for a minute because the next slides really describe it more in detail. And because we're doing this as a web viewing, I want to make sure that people have time to see what's on the screen, and then I can actually go through the other slides that describes it more in depth. For example, talks about UEFI. Well, one of the things that we were always doing is using what is called BIOS, and the BIOS is really PC driven, and what that is when your computer boots up, most of us don't realize it's going through a bootload. And one of the things that it does, back in the day, it used to do, if you all remember, the 3/4 inch floppy or the A drive. If your computer crashed, you had to have a startup disk, or you booted from the CD. Now really everything's just booting directly from the hard drive. Well, when you're talking about a thin client, zero client, something that doesn't have a hard drive, it needs the boot from something. So it would be, term that always was used was BIOS. Well, that's something that's been around a long time. And something that's more current today is UEFI, and that stands for Unified Extensible Firmware Interface. And really what it is, to give you I'll give you my simple terms, it's a specification that allows to define the software interface between an operating system and platform. And the way that happens is a lot of companies now are going that way and away from a BIOS. So we had to support that. And what actually happens in ThinManager, there's actually what we call Pixie server. It stands for pre-execution environment. And when ThinManager boots up, it looks for any devices that are out there on the environment, plant floor. And ThinManager, you have the ability of enabling that. So when you boot up that terminal, it says, hey, I see there's a Pixie server there. Let me get my firmware, let me get my drivers, let me get my information, and then I'm able to push out the content and the information you want down to that point. So now it's not just BIOS anymore, it's UEFI. So that's something there. So let's just dig a little bit deeper into what that is. The localization phase one, what we're now doing is most of our stuff was US based. Now being a international company, we're going with non-English based keyboards now. So we're in all the different countries that Rockwell's in and available. So we needed to change a lot of things versus where we were as a separate company. Again, that UEFI, it's really, again, talking about what companies were using before in a BIOS that they want to call now legacy, but now we're supporting the UEFI because we're continuing to look at there's other, of course, manufacturers that people are using on zero clients, and we want to be able to, as a company, support that. If you're not going to go with our VersaView line or our line, we still want to support you because at the end of the day, ThinManager is that product that's going to provide you the solution and resolve some of the pain that you're going through within your organizations. And then how we're going to define what we call display clients and display names is we're giving you the ability of functionality of changing the name and how the name is laid out. So we're listening to, and most of the things you're going to see are end users that are asking for this. Throughout the history of the product is we're listening to what an end user wants, and we try to put it in our roadmap and try to get it out as soon as we possibly can. Real quick, just to take an audio check. Anybody have any questions? Everybody seeing everything okay? Audio good?
We hear you.
How's Windows? How is Windows licensing handled? Do you need multiple licenses?
Great question. So when the only other license would be on that one slide where it said ThinManager VUSC. You'll need your standard CAL license, client access license, because you're not running a Windows operating system on those devices now. What you would do is you would just get your Microsoft CAL license. Since you're doing remote desktop as the protocol, that is the client access license that will be needed to connect to that terminal as well. Does that answer your question?
Screens or a single CAL? Did you hear me? Do you need four for the four different screens or a single CAL?
No, yeah, one per terminal. One CAL per device. So you get a device CAL. So the CAL is taken care of through the, you can do multiple instances under one CAL license.
Okay. Nothing else in the room, Mike, so you can.
Okay, awesome. All right. So one of the new things we did is we're now able to issue ThinManager through our Factory Talk activation and common installer, where before there was traditional licensing. That is what's also allowing us now to tie into VUSC through our Factory Talk activation process. The next slide, or the next part on this slide, is the part I was talking about. Is now that we are using ThinManager 11, and once 11 of View SE comes out, is you are using a single activation license to enable delivery of the licenses. Whether that's, and it talks about whether it's multi-session, multiple sessions on there, or failover. Failover means that that license used to be on 2 different servers, and you had to have the same amount of licensing that you're going to want to push out. And a lot of times people ran out of licensing because an operator ended up getting multiple instances delivered to his or her terminal, and then someone else was trying to do that, and of course it's not available. Now, it's not something the operator did, but it's something that they wanted to see, so someone in the control room pushed out that licensing. And it's really hard to manage your licensing when you're trying to manage your environment and you're trying to push out what you need. And now you don't have to worry about that. So as long as you're on View, ThinManager 11 and View 11, this statement here is valid, that you only have to have a single SE client license, and you can deliver multiple, or as the term says here, unlimited number of SE client sessions, no matter if you're on a single session, multi-session, or you're using redundancy. From a hardware standpoint, and we'll show you more of the hardware in the end here, but our dual 4K unit, we supported that. So we had to, from a ThinManager perspective, support 4K monitors. And so we did that back in October, and we are almost ready here to announce that we will be supporting the 4K 3 display, and then we have a 7K display. And I mean that from a hardware standpoint, not from a ThinManager. That's already, we're already there. We're already supporting that from a ThinManager perspective. This is important. This is all about touchscreen and touchscreen drivers. So we write a lot of the drivers for a lot of different manufacturers, because by default, a USB port on a 0 client or running in a ThinManager architecture is disabled and will be disabled unless you have appropriate drivers. So you won't be putting a flash drive in there because there is no drive that will read that. And on top of that, there is nowhere for that information to go. You can't, a lot of people ask us, I know when you got to reboot a terminal, you have to have a keyboard in there. Can you use a USB keyboard wedge? No, we can't do that. You must have a keyboard in there just for the time to validate it's the right terminal. And that's when a terminal goes down, you put a new one in. The new one has a new MAC address. You have to authenticate that, yes, this is a terminal I want to enter the network. And yes, please send down the profile or whatever applications were down at that terminal. And that's why we need that. But again, most people ask if we can use a USB drive to do that. And no, that's not possible. So the new flexibility and what it means by that is I have touchscreen where I can touch certain things on the screen and make it work. But now I can hold down and do some different finger gestures and have other menus pop up off the screen now. So it's become more user-friendly and not having to have to worry about an online keyboard, which you can do that, the onboard keyboard, but there's just a lot of functionality that you can do now. And it talks about tiling and calibrating and brightness and a bunch of things that you can do. And then as far as multi-monitor, we were only supporting up to 5 monitors because that's what the devices out there had, were 5 monitors. Well, now from an Allen Bradley product, we have one that's coming out that's going to be not only 7 monitors, but 4K. So that is something that we created enhancements and support for that as well. So we have that available in the release.
Hey, Mike.
And it's about security for us. A lot of things that we do, we talk about how great it is and powerful it is. We always want to emphasize about security. So there's a lot of security features within ThinManager, and we call it multi-factor authentication. We also talk about authentic pass-through. We can pass through the Active Directory and Windows licensing or security down to a single login if you want. So you can do Active Directory integration. On here, there's going to be not only our RFID, and the company's called RFIdeas. They're an Encompass partner. and that's products that you can get through the Reynolds company. But that is the badge reader we've been using, and it's an HID protocol. But there's a lot of other customers now that are saying, look, we're looking for some other badge readers that we have, and we want to be able to utilize that because this is what we have, and we don't want to get new things. So we are working with a lot of other types of badge readers, so you can use the badges that you have, and you don't have to go buy new things. So that's what's focusing here, is we're really expanding that from a security and piece of hardware. And this one's a big one. You've probably heard of it, and if you haven't, there's a product called Relevance, and Relevance is part of ThinManager. All of this is part of ThinManager. But one of the new features that we've added to Relevance is the ability of whatever you can do on a terminal, a tethered terminal that's in your environment. We want you to be able to do that same thing on the mobile device. So you can walk away from a designated area, depending on your role and who you are, and be able to see the same type of things that you would on that terminal. So some of the things we did is we allowed now tiling and virtual screens and IP cameras for the mobile device, and that is something that's very important out there that folks were looking for. That loved all the features at the tethered terminal, but said, boy, it would be nice to be able to have this on our mobile device. And you can lock down that by an application after application. You can lock it down by a user. So I don't want anybody to feel that you can take all this information and go anywhere. Now with Relevance, the reason it's called Relevance, it's talking about relevant information, but it's relevant information by who you are, and where you want to receive it. And you can set up a geographical fenced environment we call geofencing, with things called resolvers, which is Bluetooth beacons, a Wi-Fi, GPS, near field. You can incorporate all that through our ThinManager Rockwell security and limit. But again, people wanted the ability of doing you'll see on here, virtual screens. What virtual screens is a feature that we brought out in version 9. And what that gave you the ability of, we talked about devices that have multiple monitors, but what if you have a device that doesn't support multiple monitors? What do you do? But you really you want more monitors. So we ended up deciding, customer was looking for picture-in-picture. So we created picture-in-picture and expanded that. And virtual screen is a function within ThinManager that you can, on one logical screen, create up to a 4x4 grid, which is 16 virtual screens. Think of that as 16 monitors within a logical monitor that you can decide how you want that to be laid out on that one logical monitor. Now, it doesn't have to be up to 16, or 16. And any one of those can be independent and run up to a 5x5 grid of applications. So a lot of information, great for the control room. So that's a lot you can see. If you didn't build it that big, but you still wanted to see the virtual screens that you normally would at the terminal level, we're now giving you that capability on the mobile device. So you now can see that virtual screen, and you now can see the tiling, which is those 4 screens. So if you remember several slides ago when I was talking about USC, and that would be 8 sessions, that's tiling. What you saw was 4 applications on one monitor. Well, you're able to see that tiling now on a mobile device, which is huge. And that is something new and something we worked really hard to get on the mobile device, and something that was asked by a lot of people. Couple quick ones here. So the more of the what we call turn on or enhancement is it's allowing you to programmatically make some authentication changes on some other products that might be out there. Of course, those manufacturers have to approve that they want to do that, but that's something that we've made some enhancements there in case your HMI that you're having that you're going to stick with, the potential of making some enhancements. And then biometrics face recognition is pretty big. So the biometrics we've had for a while, and it's finger recognition, and it's the ability of another way of authenticating who the person is. whether you're badging in, then you want to authenticate. And then also facial recognition, really being able to identify. Now, we understand that a person could be wearing glasses and contacts, take it off. We understand that someone could have facial hair, not facial hair. So these are things that we're working through and through the different recognition programs. But again, these are things that people are asking for because they can have gloves on or they have something in their environment that they need another method. And with the mobile devices that have that today, we wanted to make sure that we were going to support that and have continued efforts and in supporting that going forward. At some point, retina is something we're looking at. But again, those are situations where contacts change, someone puts something, different glasses, different things, that changes very, very, very quickly. All right, so we're going to change gears here and talk about our hardware real quickly here. And this is a brand new slide that was shared with me today, and they wanted to make sure that I pointed out the two yellow areas that talked about. One is available now, and that's our 3-display multi 4K, and our 7K is coming out soon, and that's something that we talked about earlier about 4K support and talked about the hardware. So I didn't want to tell you it was available because I knew this slide was going to tell me that, and I didn't want to waste the slide here. So it's good news. It's a great product that we have, and you'll see our family of products, what we've had for a while, and kind of where we're going. But we will go all the way up to 7K. That's why in that one slide I mentioned that we have seven monitor support, because we have a new piece of hardware coming out that's a 7 monitor device, and it's 4K.
Hey, Mike, can you hear me?
I can.
Cool. So just to let people know, one of the big things that we've been seeing with the 3K or 3 display and 7 display is people looking at it as a replacement for their entire control room. And granted, you never want to have one piece of hardware devoted to just everything, but we've had some good conversations with customers about that recently, where they want to do the 5 or 6 displays in a room, and this is perfect for it.
Very good point. Yes, I have heard the same. This kind of give you an idea. I won't have to read through everything. You kind of see some of this, unless we have some folks on the phone. But we right now have we'll have 4 what we'll call terminal clients, right? 0 clients. I know it says thin client, but just tell you from an industry standpoint, none of these will work without ThinManager. Okay, these are all designed to work with ThinManager. So the slide says VersaView 5200 ThinManager ready industrial thin clients. Here's what that means. ThinManager ready means that there is a BIOS already, or a UEFI in there, meaning there is firmware already in the device. When the device boots up, it's already going to have most of the information that it needs, IP address and all that. You're going to program that up front. All it then does is when it communicates to the ThinManager server, we call it Thin Server, not as a piece of hardware, but just it's the engine. You then will get the content that you need, the view SC, the camera source, the maintenance work order, whatever it may be, whatever your industry is. And you'd be able to get that. So that's why it's called ThinManager Ready. And that's what that means. And then you'll see, so before we have that are called terminals themselves, but then we have a family of integrated displays. And just think about those, each one of those, the single, the dual, the 4K, it's mounted on one of our, what we call our VersaView 5100s, our panels. And that becomes the 5200 series. And that is an integrated unit. So you have your single pane of glass to the terminal in the back of it. And ThinManager's going to communicate to that via the Ethernet port. I'm also supposed to mention that we are conform and coding all what you're seeing on this screen. All our terminals and integrated units will be conform and coded. So if your industry is looking for that, just know that's something we've been doing and we're going to continue to do. So we want to make sure that you're aware of that. Any questions?
For the web audience, you can chat in, or I think if you raise your hand, I can unmute you if you'd like to ask a question live.
Let's see.
Hey, Mike.
Yes, sir.
So I know there was a discussion around this. I don't know if you've heard any new evidence about it, but for the single display, the box version of the VersaViews, they've been talking about making it Class 1 Div 2.
Yeah,
Have you heard anything else on that?
no, there's still discussions on that. There's the things that they're working on from compliances and all of that to make that happen. So yeah, that is still in discussions.
Okay, so for everybody there and everybody on the phone, from a Rockwell point of view, we're looking at the VersaView lineup, both the 5400s on the industrial computers and the 5200, but the box version, so not the integrated display, to potentially release those as Class 1 Div 2. As we get closer and we know a little bit better, earliest I'm thinking is about a year from now, but we've had that discussion regarding roadmap.
Yeah, and I know they were answered here, and again, there's this presentation is available, so you know, we normally post these things up. If folks are looking from other stuff more specific, you know, let Luis know, Wayne and others know, and they'll get with me, and I can, you know, get you whatever you're looking for. We're always open to having further discussions and presentations because you know, there's a lot being said, there's a lot being talked about. But if it's your first time, or even if you've seen this many times, it's a very, very powerful product, and sometimes it just doesn't make sense the first time. And how can it work? In fact, I will say that I had a colleague that when we talked about the View SE new release that's going to happen, and it was like, really? Are you sure? So I ended up getting the marketing manager and the product manager on the phone, and they validated. I mean, because it's a game changer type of situation, because this is what customers were asking for. And what we're doing is not that something we didn't have. It's just what we're doing now is that ThinManager is able to say, hey, this is a normal session, and I allow you to run it multiple times. So it took two technologies together to make this happen. It's ThinManager and VUSC, and that's why it works, and that's why it's going to be a benefit from a licensing standpoint and for what you have existing today. So, you know, get with your Rockwell representatives, your Rexo representatives, and make sure what kind of licensing you have today. Look at what you have from an HMI and do the ROI. Look at the savings that you're going to have by switching over. There might be a cost up front, or maybe some engineering up front, but long term, when it comes to licensing, you will see the benefit of going with USC 11 and on, running ThinManager, because you're going to get all the functionality that you probably are looking for, or maybe some things you've seen or heard today, and that gives you the ability of growing. And one thing from whether it's a Rockwell product or not, from a ThinManager perspective, there's always major releases. There's always major additions to the product. This has been used since '99 with a lot of companies, and there's standardization on this. If you want information, and I can provide links and et cetera, on why this is better than something else out there that somebody's already using Thin clients, or they're using, and I won't mention one because there's a lot of them, you know, other platforms out there. Again, I want to emphasize, if you remember anything from today, is that don't look at Rockwell ThinManager as a content delivery system only. Look at it as a platform that does a lot of things. First and foremost, it helps you recover that down terminal very, very quickly. IT loves that. It's not the 2 o'clock call in the morning coming in and replacing a terminal. This has really been designed for a operator to be able to do that. Now, I did mention that our units are ThinManager ready. They also can Pixie boot as well. You can go and change the boot process, because when I say that a operator can go in and take out the terminal, put in a new terminal, boot it up, it gets asked a question. Are you sure you want to authenticate? Yes, you're done. You're back up and running in 2 minutes. That's crucial to a lot of businesses. And we usually hear 2 hours to whatever. And you all that are on this know or have seen or have been experienced through a downtime of something. Downtime is expensive. So look at all that when you're talking about ThinManager. Look at it, how you can display and put out different content different ways. Also look at it from a mobility standpoint. You might not have a mobility initiative today. If you do, maybe look at what the ThinManager product can do and Relevance can do. And again, some of our other products within Rockwell will work very, very well from a mobility standpoint as well. So it doesn't matter if what your application you're running, ThinManager can be that delivery mechanism and give you the ability of pushing it out and displaying it in a very secure way. And that's my last slide.
Okay. We got a question in the room here, Mike, so hold on.
Okay.
In terms of mobility, what types of devices does it run on that are actual like mobile devices? Like, can you run it on a standard tablet or something with some sort of a ThinManager client style application, or is there specific devices that would have to have this capability that are from Rockwell?
Great question. Yeah, so it can work on an Android, a Surface, or an iPad. So the 3 apps that are free and downloadable off the appropriate stores. iTMC is for Apple, ATMC is Android, WinTMC is Windows. And that is a client that goes on the device. That device, you simply click Add Server, and you put in the appropriate IP address for one of the servers that's configured within ThinManager. So example of mine in my demo kit, I have 10.6.10.51. That's my primary server. That's what I put in. My secondary server is 10.6.10.50. So all I do is go to ITMC on the iPad we'll use, and I click on the ITMC icon. I click on that. It connects to the server. I don't get anything natively yet. Then what I have to do is I have to log in as a user. Molly, Mary, Matt, Mark, what have you, whatever the person's name is. And at that point, if that person in their profile within ThinManager, because you set up profiles and you also set up things from Active Directory, if they natively get something, so let's look at Matt or Mary, that the maintenance, we typically in the demo give them the work order. So when they log in, the work order is going to show up on the iPad. So it's giving them something that they need. That's as they go and go do what they need to do. So you get that natively, you can set that up. Then where relevance comes into play is you could walk up to a machine, scan a QR code that's been configured in ThinManager. When you scan that motor, what it gives you, and we do this in a demo, is the frequency drive PDF, schematic, and HMI. It gives you all the tools you need as opposed to leaving, going to the filing cabinet and grabbing those documentations. So anything you can push out that's on a server or that's something that's virtual, you can push that out to a person. If you want to push the HMI. Now, people, we do this all the time, and Wayne can tell you, he's got this little card, and Louis can tell you, we have this little card, and the QR code does do logic. And so next thing you know, someone's over here going, can I program this? We don't highly recommend using a mobile device to do any trending and programming, but you technically could deliver, our Studio 5000 logic application or Vantage Point or whatever the tool is. And again, if it's a third party, any other HMI or tools, you can push that out to any one of those mobile devices. Did I answer that for you?
Yep, that answered it.
Perfect.
All right. Anyone else? All right, Mike, I think I don't think we have any questions in the room, and online, if you want to chat in or raise your hand, we'll do a last call for that. We will send out a follow up to all the attendees with the link, and the we'll have the presentation available on our archive site as we always do. So that will be made available here as soon as possible. And anytime you got questions, reach out to us. For the guys that were here in the New Orleans room, we actually have our little Mr. Demo ThinManager demo up in the room. So we do have one that you guys can come take a look at anytime. It demonstrates very well. It also can be used as a hands-on trainer. And of course, like we said in the beginning, we'll have the one-day training class coming up in March, about a month from now.
And we've got a quick question here about tech support. Great question. So tech support is what is called platform maintenance today. And platform maintenance is something that has been from the ThinManager side, and it's not part of Tech Connect today. So it is something that is a separate line item in Proposal Works that you would see, and it's called platform maintenance. And the key thing that it's doing and the way the licensing and all that works is you're getting the software upgrades available through platform maintenance. So when you're calling, you're going to be calling a number, and you're going to actually be talking to the folks that know ThinManager. And then and we've got a lot of them. And if there's not that, then it rolls over to from a Rockwell perspective, and it's bilingual. And it's 24/7. So you're going to have support from that standpoint on ThinManager. But the title of it is called platform maintenance. That was a question that just popped up here. So.
Okay. All right, Mike, appreciate the presentation. Luis as well for lending a hand, and we'll go ahead and wrap it up. And everybody had a good day, and hopefully stay dry. So thanks again, Mike.
Thank you all so much. Have a great day. Thanks, Wayne. Thanks, Luis.
Good job, guys.